My dear friends, pain is one of the deepest realities of human life. Every heart here has been touched by it in one form or another. Some carry the pain of loss, a loved one who's gone too soon. Others are weighed down by rejection, betrayal, or loneliness that seems too heavy to bear. And then there are those whose pain cannot even be described with words, wounds buried so deep that only God Himself can see them. You might smile in public, shake hands, and say, "I'm fine," but inside you feel broken, forgotten, or unloved. Yet today, I want to tell you something powerful. God will heal your pain. Not might, not someday far away. He will heal it if you let Him. Pain is not a stranger to life. It doesn't matter who you are, rich or poor, strong or weak, known or unknown. Suffering will visit your door. But pain is not the end of your story. The Bible tells us that the Lord is near to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. When you're crushed, when your heart feels like shattered glass, that's when God draws closest to you. You may not see Him with your eyes, but His presence surrounds you in that valley of sorrow. The world may offer distractions, false comforts, or quick fixes, but only the healing touch of God can truly mend what's been torn apart inside you. There are moments when we ask, "Why, God? Why did you let this happen? Why me?" It's not wrong to ask that question. Even Jesus, hanging on the cross, cried out, my God, why have you forsaken me?" Pain can make you question everything you thought you knew. But here's the truth. God is not afraid of your questions. He's not offended by your tears. He welcomes your cries. He understands your sorrow because He has felt it Himself. The Son of God knows the pain of betrayal, the agony of rejection, the sting of loss. He stood at the tomb of His friend Lazarus and wept. Those tears were not for show. They were real. They remind us that the God who reigns over heaven and earth is not distant or cold. He feels your pain and He carries it with you. Maybe right now you're sitting in silence, wondering if the ache inside you will ever end. You wake up each morning and the first thing you feel isn't joy or peace, but a heaviness you can't shake. You look around and think everyone else seems fine, so why do I feel so broken? But what you don't see is that God is already working behind the scenes. Sometimes He doesn't remove the pain immediately because He's using it to prepare you, to strengthen you, to reveal something greater. Pain is never wasted in God's hands. It becomes the soil in which your faith grows deeper, your compassion expands wider, and your understanding of His love becomes clearer. Think about it. When everything is easy, we rarely seek God. But when life brings us to our knees, that's when we look up. Pain pushes us toward the only one who can truly comfort us. Maybe that's why He allows it. Not because He enjoys our suffering, but because He loves us enough to draw us closer through it. Sometimes God will let you walk through darkness just so you can discover that He is your light. He'll let you feel empty so that you can be filled with His presence. He'll let your plans crumble so that you can rest in His perfect will. There's a story about a silversmith who refines silver in the fire. The metal must be placed in the hottest part of the flame for all the impurities to be burned away. Someone once asked the silversmith, "How do you know when the silver is ready?" He answered, "When I can see my reflection in it." That's what God does with us. He allows us to walk through the heat of pain, not to destroy us, but to refine us until His image is seen in our lives. The fire may hurt, but it purifies. The pain may seem unbearable, but it's producing something beautiful in you, a strength, a wisdom, a peace that could never come any other way. Sometimes God's healing doesn't come the way we expect. We think healing means everything goes back to how it was before, but often it means God gives you peace in the middle of what hasn't changed yet. Healing can be a process, sometimes slow, sometimes hidden, but always sure. You may not notice it day by day, but one morning you'll wake up and realize the weight on your heart has lifted. You'll smile again, not because everything is perfect, but because you know that God has been faithful. Healing is not forgetting what hurt you, it's remembering it without pain, because God redeemed it. Let me tell you this, no wound is too deep for God's touch. No scar is too old for His mercy. Some of you have been carrying bitterness or shame for years, thinking you've gone too far or that time has erased your chance for joy. But God specializes in restoration. He can bring life to what looks dead, hope to what feels hopeless, and beauty to what seems broken beyond repair. The same hands that formed the stars can mend your heart. The same voice that calmed the storm can speak peace over your soul. If you could see what God sees, you'd understand that your pain is not punishment, it's preparation. God is preparing you for something greater than what you've lost. He's using your pain to give you purpose. That heartbreak you endured will one day help you comfort someone else who's going through the same thing. Your tears will become your testimony. Your scars will become stories of survival and grace. You'll be able to say, I've been through the fire, but God never left me. I've walked through the valley, but His hand held me up. And others will find hope in your healing. You see, the enemy wants your pain to destroy you. He whispers lies that you'll never recover, that you'll never be happy again, that you'll never be whole. But the devil is a liar. God has already declared the end from the beginning. And He says, I will restore the years the locust has eaten. That means everything you've lost, your peace, your joy, your purpose, God can give it back, multiplied. You may have been broken, but you won't stay that way. You may have been weeping through the night, but joy will come in the morning. There's power in surrender. Healing begins when you stop fighting to control what you can't fix and simply fall into the arms of God. When you let go and say, Lord, I can't carry this anymore. That's when He begins to carry you. The strength to survive pain doesn't come from within you. It comes from the one who lives within you. He gives you new strength each day, enough for the next step, enough for the next breath. You may not feel strong, but His strength is made perfect in your weakness. Perhaps you've been praying for healing for a long time and it hasn't come yet. Don't give up. God's silence doesn't mean His absence. Sometimes He's quiet because He's working on something you can't see. Like a seed buried in the ground, your healing is growing in secret. It may look like nothing is happening, but in God's timing, it will break through the surface. You'll see the fruit of your faith. Trust the process. Trust His timing. Trust His heart. There are moments in life when all you can do is weep. Let those tears fall. God collects every one of them. Not a single tear you cry is wasted. They water the ground where your healing will bloom. The same God who brought you this far won't leave you now. You may feel alone in your pain, but you are not abandoned. The Holy Spirit is with you, comforting you, guiding you, whispering hope into the silence. There's something holy about brokenness. When you bring your pain to God, it becomes an offering. He takes what is shattered and makes something sacred out of it. The very thing that once made you weak becomes the reason others find strength. You'll find that your deepest wound is where His glory shines the brightest. So hold on. Don't let despair convince you that your story is over. God's not finished with you yet. Healing is on the way. Peace is on the way. Restoration is on the way. You may not understand the why, but you can trust the who. The same God who created you knows how to heal you. He hasn't forgotten your name, your tears, or your prayers. He knows exactly what you've been through and exactly what you need. And when the healing comes, and it will, you'll look back and realize that every step, every sleepless night, every tear was leading you closer to Him. You'll say, now I see, He was with me all along. You'll discover that the greatest miracle isn't just that God healed your pain, but that through your pain, you found God in a way you never knew before. Because at the heart of it all, that's what pain does. It strips away the noise of the world until all that's left is you and Him. And in that quiet place, you find what you were missing all along. His love, a love that heals, a love that restores, a love that never leaves. My friend, no matter what you're going through right now, no matter how deep the wound, how heavy the burden, or how dark the night, lift your eyes to heaven. God will heal your pain. When life wounds you deeply, when your heart aches in ways you can't even describe, you may feel as though you're walking through a valley with no light, no hope, and no end. But in that very moment, when your tears fall silently on your pillow and your soul feels abandoned, that is when God is closest to you. The scriptures tell us that He is near to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. This is not just a comforting verse. It is a divine truth, a promise written by the hand of a loving Father who sees every hidden sorrow. God is not distant from your pain. He's right there in it with you. When your heart breaks, His heart breaks with it. When you cry, he listens. When you can't find the words to pray, he understands the language of your tears. Pain has a way of making us feel invisible. You may walk through crowds, sit among family, or work beside others, yet feel like no one truly sees the depth of what you're enduring. You may even think that God himself has turned his face away, but that's not the truth. The truth is, God's presence is most powerful in your weakness. He doesn't rush past your suffering or ignore your cries. He leans in close. The God who created the universe, who commands the stars, bends low to comfort his child. He whispers into the quiet places of your heart. I am here. Sometimes we expect God to show up in the thunder or the lightning, but more often he comes softly, in a moment of peace, in a verse that speaks to your situation, in a gentle reminder that you're not alone. When you feel broken, you may wonder why a loving God allows you to experience such pain. You might question, if he really loves me, why would he let me go through this? But even when you don't understand the reasons, God's heart toward you never changes. His love isn't dependent on your circumstances. It doesn't fade when you're struggling. Instead, it shines brighter in your darkness. God never promised a life without pain, but he did promise that he would never leave you in it. He doesn't always take away the storm, but he walks through it with you. His presence becomes your anchor when the waves threaten to pull you under. You may not feel him every second, but faith isn't built on feelings. It's built on trust. Every scar tells a story, and God knows every one of yours. He sees the heartbreak you try to hide, the disappointments that weigh you down, the fears you never speak aloud. You don't have to pretend to be strong before him. He invites you to bring your weakness, your confusion, your anger, your tears. He isn't afraid of your honesty. When you pour out your heart to him, he pours his peace into you. Sometimes the healing doesn't come in an instant, but in his presence, something begins to shift. The ache becomes a little lighter, the darkness a little less heavy. That's what happens when you allow the light of God's love to touch the broken places inside you. It begins to mend what the world could never fix. There are people who walk through unimaginable loss and yet still find peace, still find strength to go on. That strength doesn't come from themselves. It comes from knowing that God is near. When you realize that your pain is seen and your tears are noticed, you begin to find comfort even in sorrow. You start to understand that your suffering has not gone unseen by heaven. God collects every tear, treasures every cry, and turns every heartbreak into something that will one day reflect his glory. You may not see it now, but one day you'll look back and realize that even when you thought you were alone, his hands were holding you up. Pain isolates, but God's love gathers. When you feel forgotten, he remembers you. When you feel unworthy, he reminds you that you are his creation, fearfully and wonderfully made. He never turns away from a broken heart. Instead, he makes his home there. Your brokenness becomes the very place where his grace resides. Sometimes we think we have to fix ourselves before we can come to God, but the truth is he asks us to come as we are, shattered, confused, and hurting. He doesn't expect perfection. He desires surrender. When you bring him your pain, he doesn't push you away. He embraces you with a love that heals. The world teaches us to hide our pain, to smile when we're bleeding inside, but God invites us to be real. He says, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." That rest isn't just physical, it's the deep spiritual peace that washes over you when you finally stop running and collapse into his arms. There's something sacred about being broken in the presence of God, because it's there that you discover who he truly is. He's not just a distant deity watching from afar, he's a father who leans close to his children. He knows the details of your pain, how it started, how long you've carried it, and how tired you are of pretending it doesn't hurt. In those quiet moments, when you can't hold it together anymore, when all you can do is whisper, "God, help me," he answers, sometimes not with words, but with peace that surpasses understanding. Sometimes not with immediate change, but with the strength to take another step. That strength is proof that he's near. His nearness is not always loud or dramatic. Often it's a still small presence that meets you in the middle of the night, reminding you that even if no one else understands, he does. When you can't trace his hand, trust his heart. He is faithful even in your pain. You might look around and see people who seem unbothered, whose lives appear perfect, and wonder why your journey feels so heavy. But pain doesn't mean God has abandoned you. It means He's inviting you deeper into His presence. You are not forgotten, not overlooked, not unloved. God's love is the kind that sits with you in silence, that holds you through your trembling, that doesn't rush your healing. He doesn't just fix your pain, He walks with you through it. The same God who saw Hagar weeping in the wilderness sees you too. The same God who comforted Mary at the tomb is comforting you right now. His love reaches into the places that no one else can touch. And though your heart may feel broken beyond repair, remember that God specializes in restoration. He can take the shattered pieces of your life and shape them into something beautiful. He can turn your mourning into joy, your tears into testimonies, and your pain into purpose. When you're too weak to stand, He carries you. When you can't pray, His Spirit intercedes for you. When you feel lost, He lights the way. There's no part of your pain that He cannot redeem. So, when you find yourself surrounded by darkness, lift your eyes to the One who holds the stars. He hasn't forgotten you. His presence is closer than your next breath. Every beat of your heart is a reminder that His love sustains you. He is near to the brokenhearted, not as a distant comfort, but as a living, breathing presence that wraps around your soul and whispers, "You are mine." Even when the pain feels unbearable, even when your world feels shattered, know this: God is with you, and His love will not let you go. Pain is not punishment, but preparation for a greater purpose. There are moments in life when what you're going through makes no sense at all. The loss, the heartbreak, the unanswered prayers, they feel like cruel twists of fate, moments designed to break you down. But what if they were designed to build you up? What if the very pain that feels like it's destroying you is the tool God is using to shape you into someone stronger, wiser, and more compassionate than you've ever been before? God never wastes pain. Every tear you've cried, every disappointment you've faced, every season of waiting you've endured has meaning in His divine plan. Pain is not the end. It's the beginning of something new that God is preparing in you and for you. So often we think pain means God has turned away from us, that somehow we've fallen out of His favor. But that couldn't be further from the truth. When God allows pain into your life, it isn't because He's angry with you. It's because He's preparing you for something you cannot yet see. Every trial, every setback, every heartbreak is like a fire that purifies gold. The gold doesn't lose its value in the fire, it becomes more refined. That's what happens to your soul when you walk through suffering. The flames that feel like they're consuming you are actually refining you, burning away doubt, pride, fear, and everything that keeps you from fully depending on Him. God doesn't use comfort to grow you, He uses challenge. And when He allows you to feel the weight of pain, He's strengthening the foundation of your faith so it can carry the purpose He's preparing for you. Think about the great stories of the Bible. Joseph was betrayed by his brothers, sold into slavery, and imprisoned for years for a crime he didn't commit. He could have given up. He could have believed God had forgotten him. But what he didn't see was that every trial, every painful step was leading him to the very position where he would one day save a nation. His pain was not punishment, it was preparation. Moses spent 40 years in the wilderness before he ever led anyone out of Egypt. David was hunted like an animal before he ever wore a crown. Even Jesus endured the agony of the cross before the glory of resurrection. There is always purpose before promotion, pain before power, struggle before strength. If God allowed it, He intends to use it. Sometimes the preparation doesn't look like preparation. It looks like loneliness. It looks like doors closing. It looks like prayers that go unanswered. But behind every no, every delay, every heartbreak, there's a deeper yes being written by God's hand. He's teaching you to trust Him when you don't understand, to rely on Him when you can't rely on yourself. He's building endurance, patience, and faith within you. You might not see it now, but you're being prepared for something that requires this level of strength, this level of character, this level of dependence on Him. He's not breaking you, He's building you. And when He finally unveils the purpose behind your pain, you'll realize that what felt like punishment was actually protection and preparation all along. There's a story told of a sculptor who spent years carving a statue from a block of marble. When someone asked him how he knew what to carve, he said, "I just chipped away everything that wasn't the image inside." That's what God does with us. The pain you feel is the chisel in his hand. He's shaping you, removing what doesn't belong, and revealing the beauty he placed within you from the beginning. It hurts when he removes parts of your life, when he cuts away relationships, dreams, or habits that no longer serve his purpose. But every stroke of his hand is deliberate, filled with love, and aimed toward your good. You are his masterpiece, and he will not stop until you reflect his image completely. When life feels unfair, when you're tempted to ask, why is this happening to me? Remember that preparation doesn't always feel good, but it's always for good. You cannot have the strength to carry great blessings without first enduring great trials. The same fire that melts wax hardens clay, and God is using the heat of your circumstances to harden your faith, to make it unshakable. The very things that tried to destroy you are becoming the proof that you are being prepared for something greater. You're being strengthened to handle blessings you once couldn't carry, being stretched to reach heights you once couldn't imagine. In our moments of suffering, we often look for the quickest way out. We want relief, not refinement. But God's goal isn't just to make us comfortable, it's to make us complete. He's not interested in giving you temporary happiness at the cost of eternal growth. Sometimes he allows you to walk through the valley because there are lessons you can only learn there. It's in the valley that your faith is tested, your trust is deepened, and your heart is humbled. You learn that God is enough, even when everything else is stripped away. And when you come out on the other side, you realize that the valley was never meant to break you. It was meant to build you. You might not understand it now, but your pain is planting seeds that will produce fruit later. Every trial has a hidden blessing within it. Every disappointment is redirection. Every heartbreak is an opening for God to do something new. Sometimes God will even use your greatest pain as a platform for your greatest purpose. The things you've survived will become the stories that inspire others. The tears you've shed will water someone else's hope. The strength you're building in this season will be the same strength that helps others in theirs. Pain is never wasted when it's placed in the hands of God. You may be in a season of waiting, wondering why things haven't turned around yet. But don't mistake delay for denial. God is still preparing you. He's aligning the pieces, positioning people, and working in ways you can't yet see. If he gave you everything you've been praying for right now, you might not be ready to handle it. So he allows you to go through moments that teach you patience, endurance, and trust. He's not withholding your blessing. He's protecting it, and you from being mishandled. He's making sure the foundation is strong enough to carry what's coming next. Look back on your life and think about the times you thought it was over, the times you didn't know how you'd survive, but somehow you did. Those moments were not random, they were rehearsals for this season. Every heartbreak prepared you for deeper love. Every closed door prepared you for better opportunities. Every loss taught you the value of what truly matters. You've been walking through preparation, not punishment. The pain you've endured has positioned you for the promise that's ahead. And though it hurts now, one day you'll look back and thank God for the seasons that didn't make sense. You'll realize that if you hadn't gone through what you did, you wouldn't have the faith you have now, the strength you carry now, or the peace that now anchors your soul. What you thought was the end was actually the beginning. What you thought was God's rejection was his redirection. Every tear was a part of your training, every storm a part of your shaping, every moment of pain a step toward purpose. God's plan for your life includes both the mountaintops and the valleys, both the laughter and the tears, both the joy and the pain. It all works together to prepare you for what he's destined you to become. God's healing often begins in silence and grows in hidden places. When you pray and hear nothing, when the heavens seem quiet, and when you feel like your cries are echoing back to you unanswered, that is often when God is doing his most powerful work. We tend to think silence means absence, but in the kingdom of God, silence is often a sign of divine activity. There are times when God withdraws the noise, the signs, the feelings, not because he has abandoned you, but because he is working beneath the surface where your eyes cannot see. Healing does not always happen with flashes of light or loud miracles. Sometimes it happens slowly, quietly, gently, as God mends the broken pieces of your heart one moment at a time. There is a holy mystery in the way God heals. When he chooses to work in silence, he is not punishing you with his quietness. He is protecting the sacred process he's begun within you. Just as a seed must be buried in the darkness of the soil before it can bloom, your healing begins in the unseen. Beneath the surface of your pain, beneath your prayers and your tears, God is cultivating new life. The seed doesn't make a sound as it grows. It simply breaks open, dies to what it was, and begins to sprout into something new. That's what God does with you. He allows the old parts, the pain, the fear, the bitterness, to die so that something greater can rise in their place. We often want instant healing, a quick miracle, a sudden transformation that takes away every ache. But God knows that deep wounds require deep healing, and that kind of restoration takes time. He is not just interested in easing your pain. He's interested in transforming your heart. He wants to heal not just what's hurting you, but what caused the hurt in the first place. He works patiently, layer by layer, until his peace seeps into every corner of your soul. Sometimes his silence is the sound of him working. The silence you're afraid of may be the space where he is rewriting your story. There's a story told of a farmer who planted a bamboo seed. For the first year, nothing appeared. The second year, still nothing. The third year, not a single shoot broke through the ground. People laughed and said he was wasting his time. But in the fifth year, that bamboo suddenly shot up, not inches, but feet, rising over 70 feet tall in just a few weeks. What happened during those silent years? The roots were growing deep, spreading wide, preparing to sustain the height that was coming. That's what God does with your healing. It may look like nothing is happening, but beneath the surface, your spiritual roots are growing stronger, preparing to carry the life he's building inside you. The silence is not stagnation, it's strengthening. When you feel like your prayers are bouncing off the ceiling, remember that silence does not mean God is ignoring you. Often he's listening more closely than ever. Sometimes he withholds answers, not because he doesn't care, but because he's teaching you to trust his heart, even when you can't trace his hand. You see, faith is not proven in moments of clarity. It's proven in moments of silence. It's easy to believe when everything feels alive and vibrant, but true faith grows when you keep believing, even when heaven seems quiet. The silence is not empty, it's sacred. It's where God tests the roots of your trust, deepens your dependence, and teaches you to rest in his promises instead of your perceptions. There's something beautiful that happens in those quiet seasons. You begin to realize that God's presence doesn't always need to be loud to be real. It's not always about goosebumps or emotion. Sometimes it's the gentle stillness that fills the room when you cry, the peace that comes for no reason at all, the strength that appears out of nowhere when you feel you've reached your end. That's God. He's working quietly, softly rebuilding what was broken without drawing attention to himself. He doesn't need to announce his healing. He simply does it. And one day, you'll look back and realize you're not the same person you were before. The pain that once consumed you no longer has power over you, and you'll understand that his silence was never abandonment. It was surgery. Many times, God allows stillness to remove distractions from our hearts. When everything is loud, when life is full of activity and noise, it's easy to miss his voice. But in silence, you begin to hear differently. You hear not with your ears, but with your spirit. That's where revelation comes, where faith matures, where healing takes root. The silence teaches you that God doesn't need to shout to be sovereign. He doesn't need to prove himself through signs when he can reveal himself through peace. His silence is not void. It's a fertile ground for growth. Think about the caterpillar in the cocoon. From the outside, it looks like nothing is happening. There's no movement, no sound, no visible change. But inside that dark, still place, transformation is taking place. Wings are forming, color is taking shape, and a new creature is being born. That's what's happening when God is silent in your life. You may feel trapped in the cocoon of waiting, unable to move forward, wondering if he's forgotten you. But he hasn't. The silence is your cocoon, the place where he's transforming you from what you were into what you're meant to become. And when the time is right, he will break the silence and release you into a new season of freedom and purpose. There are times when the pain you feel doesn't vanish, but slowly loses its power. You start to notice small shifts. a moment of peace where there used to be anxiety, a flicker of hope where there used to be despair. Those are signs that healing is happening. You may not feel a dramatic miracle, but God's hand is quietly restoring your spirit. Healing doesn't always shout. Sometimes it whispers. It moves gently, unnoticed, until one day you wake up and realize the wound no longer defines you. The memory remains, but the pain no longer controls you. That's the beauty of God's hidden work. You may feel unseen, but you are not forgotten. God's silence is often His way of drawing you closer. When you can't rely on feelings, you learn to rely on faith. When you can't hear His voice, you learn to trust His word. And in that process, you grow stronger, deeper, more anchored. You begin to understand that God doesn't just want to heal your circumstances. He wants to heal your relationship with Him. He's teaching you that His presence is not confined to emotional highs or outward signs. It's steady, constant, unchanging. So when heaven seems quiet, don't despair. The silence is not rejection, it's refinement. The stillness is not punishment, it's preparation. You're not being ignored, you're being instructed. Just as the roots grow deepest where no one can see, your healing is taking place in the unseen parts of your heart. You're learning patience, resilience, surrender. You're learning that God's timing is perfect and His methods are mysterious but always good. One day the silence will break and you'll realize it wasn't empty after all. It was full of His unseen grace working in your favor. True healing comes when you surrender your pain completely to God. There is a point every heart reaches when it can no longer carry the weight of its sorrow, when the strength to pretend fades and the tears you've been holding back finally spill over. That moment, though it feels like breaking, is actually the beginning of healing, because real healing doesn't start when everything gets better. It starts when you stop trying to fix everything by yourself and hand it over to the one who can. Surrender is not weakness. It's the highest form of trust. It's saying, God, I can't do this anymore, but I know you can. It's releasing control, laying down the burdens you were never meant to bear, and choosing to rest in His love even when you don't understand His plan. So often we hold on to pain because letting go feels like losing control. We replay the memories, we analyze the mistakes, we try to make sense of what broke us. We think that if we can just understand it, we can somehow undo it. But healing doesn't come through reasoning, it comes through releasing. When you cling to pain, it festers and grows, but when you place it in God's hands, it transforms. The moment you surrender, heaven begins to move. What you place in God's hands never remains the same. He can take the shattered pieces of your life and shape them into something beautiful. But He can't heal what you refuse to hand over. He won't force His way into a heart that's still trying to fix itself. Healing begins when you open your hands, lift your eyes, and say, Lord, I give it to you. There's a reason the Bible says, cast all your cares on Him because He cares for you. The word cast isn't gentle. It means to throw with force, to hurl something away. God doesn't ask you to carefully hand Him your pain. He invites you to throw it at His feet with everything you've got. The anger, the confusion, the heartbreak, He can handle it. You don't have to clean it up or make it sound spiritual before you bring it to Him. He wants it raw and real, because only what's fully surrendered can be fully healed. There's no wound too deep, no scar too old, and no mistake too great for His mercy. When you release it all, He replaces your sorrow with strength, your chaos with calm, and your burden with peace. Sometimes surrender happens in a single moment, but often it's a daily decision. Every morning you have to choose to let go again. You may wake up and feel the pain pressing on your chest, and you'll have to say, God, I'm giving this back to you. Healing isn't about never feeling hurt again. It's about knowing where to take that hurt every time it rises. It's about replacing anxiety with prayer, replacing control with trust, replacing bitterness with forgiveness. Each time you surrender, God works a little deeper. Each time you let go, He restores another part of you. Healing isn't always instant, but it's inevitable when your heart stays surrendered. There's a story of a man who carried a heavy stone on his back. Every day he walked, weary and bent under the weight. But when someone offered to help him, he refused, saying, I've carried this for so long, I wouldn't know who I am without it. That's how many of us live. We carry pain for so long that it becomes part of our identity. we start to believe we are our trauma, our losses, our failures. But God says, you are not your pain, you are my child. When you surrender your burden to Him, you're not losing a part of yourself. You're reclaiming who you were meant to be before the pain entered your story. Surrender doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop controlling. You stop trying to manipulate outcomes, stop replaying what ifs, and start trusting that God knows what He's doing. It's giving Him the pen and allowing Him to write the next chapter, even when you don't understand the plot. And the moment you do that, peace begins to seep in. Not because the situation has changed, but because your heart has. You realize that healing isn't the absence of pain, it's the presence of peace in the middle of it. It's knowing that whatever happens, you're safe in His hands. When Jesus hung on the cross, His final words were, "Father, into your hands I commit my spirit." Even in His suffering, He surrendered. And in that surrender, redemption was born. The greatest act of healing in human history began with an act of surrender. That's the pattern God gives us. When you commit your spirit, your pain, your wounds into His hands, resurrection follows. What feels like an ending becomes the beginning of something new. Surrender is the doorway to restoration. You can't receive new life while still clinging to what's been lost. You have to let it go to make room for what's coming next. There are times when you'll try to surrender, but your heart will still ache. That's okay. God doesn't demand perfection in your surrender. He honors your effort. He sees every time you whisper, "I trust you," even through tears. He sees every time you choose to forgive when it hurts, every time you keep believing when you don't see results. Surrender is a process of learning to loosen your grip one finger at a time. It's learning to say, even if it doesn't turn out the way I hoped, I still believe you're good. And that kind of faith moves mountains. That kind of faith heals wounds. When you hold on to pain, you're holding on to what's behind you. But when you surrender, you're opening your hands for what's ahead. The enemy wants to keep you stuck in the past, reliving the moments that broke you. But God wants to lead you forward into the future He designed for you. Surrender is what bridges that gap. It's what turns pain into purpose, heartbreak into hope, and sorrow into strength. The moment you release your pain, you make room for His promises. The weight you've been carrying begins to lift, and you realize that freedom was never about escape. It was about release. Sometimes God will even allow your strength to fail so that you'll finally lean on His. He'll let you reach the end of yourself so you'll discover the beginning of His grace. He doesn't want a portion of your pain. He wants all of it. Because what you give Him completely, He heals completely. When you surrender, you stop fighting a battle that was never yours to win in the first place. You let Him fight for you. You let Him be your defender, your healer, your restorer. The moment you surrender, the weight shifts from your shoulders to His, and that's when peace returns. It's not easy to let go. It takes courage to trust when everything inside you wants to hold on. But God honors that courage. He meets you in the moment of surrender with a love that doesn't just comfort you, it transforms you. His presence becomes your safe place, your refuge, your healer. And as you continue to surrender day by day, you begin to notice something miraculous. The pain that once ruled your life no longer defines you. The memories no longer sting like they used to. The weight that once crushed you now feels light. Because when you place everything in His hands, He doesn't just heal the wound, He heals the heart that carried it. Your wounds will one day become your witness and testimony of His grace. Every scar you carry tells a story of what hurt you, of what tried to destroy you, but also of what couldn't break you. When God heals you, He doesn't erase your past, He redeems it. He takes what once caused you pain and turns it into proof of His power. The same places that were once sources of shame become sources of strength. You begin to realize that the things that once made you weep are now the very things that make you worship. Because every wound you've survived becomes a living testimony of how faithful God truly is. When you walk through deep pain, it's easy to wonder why. You ask, why did this happen to me? Why did I have to go through this? But what you'll come to see in time is that your pain was never wasted. God uses it to prepare you for something far greater. He doesn't cause every wound, but He never lets one go unused. He shapes your compassion through it. He strengthens your faith because of it, and he builds a testimony within you that can reach others who are still hurting. Your greatest ministry will often come from your greatest misery. The same place that broke you will one day be the place God uses you to heal others. You'll look at someone going through what you once endured and you'll say, I know how that feels, but I also know how God can restore. That's when your wound becomes your witness. People can argue with your opinions, but they can't argue with your testimony. They can't deny what God has done in your life. You might have walked through fire, but you didn't burn. You might have been in the storm, but you didn't drown. And the reason you're still standing is not because you were strong enough. It's because God was faithful enough. When you begin to tell your story through that lens, your scars shine with grace instead of shame. You start to see that what the enemy meant for evil, God turned for good. Every disappointment, every heartbreak, every sleepless night becomes evidence of divine mercy. The wound that once defined you now declares the goodness of God. Some of the most powerful testimonies are born in silence when no one sees the battle you're fighting. There are nights when you cry yourself to sleep, mornings when you can barely get out of bed, days when your prayers feel unanswered. But it's in those hidden struggles that God is shaping your witness. Because when the breakthrough finally comes, you won't just be telling people what you believe, you'll be telling them what you've lived. You'll speak with an authority that only comes from experience. You'll be able to say, I've been there. I've felt that pain. I've walked through that valley, and yet God never left me. That kind of testimony carries power because it's soaked in truth and tears. It's not a story you read, it's a story you survive. Your testimony isn't about how perfect your faith was. It's about how persistent God's love was. Even when you doubted, even when you stumbled, even when you were angry or afraid, He didn't let go. That's what makes your story so powerful. Because grace doesn't just meet you in your victories, it meets you in your valleys. It meets you when you're broken, when you're lost, when you have nothing left to give. And when you come out of that place, you carry a different kind of faith, one that can't be shaken by storms because it was forged in them. The scars you bear become symbols of survival, reminders that you faced the impossible and still made it through. There are people right now who are praying for the kind of breakthrough you've already received. They're walking through darkness and wondering if there's any light ahead. When you share your story, you become that light. You become living proof that God can heal, restore, and redeem. Your honesty can help someone else believe again. You never know whose heart will be touched by your words, whose faith will be revived because you chose to speak. What once was your deepest wound becomes a tool in God's hand to bring healing to others. He never wastes pain. He transforms it into purpose. Sometimes you might hesitate to share your story because it still feels tender. You think, I'm not ready, or it's too painful to talk about. But even before your healing is complete, God can use your process to encourage others. You don't have to wait until everything is perfect to be a witness of His grace. People don't need to see perfection. They need to see perseverance. They need to see real faith in real struggle, not polished words, but honest hearts. When you tell your story from that place, it doesn't glorify your pain. It glorifies your provider. It shows that even in the middle of brokenness, God's presence was constant. There will come a day when you'll look back and realize that what once broke you actually built you. The very things you thought would end you are the things God used to strengthen your character, deepen your faith, and prepare your heart for greater things. You'll see that your tears watered the soil of your future testimony. You'll understand that the night was necessary for the sunrise to make sense. You'll thank God not for the pain itself, but for what He produced through it. Because when He heals you, He doesn't just close the wound. He fills it with purpose. Every scar becomes sacred. Every memory becomes meaningful. You stop seeing your story as something to hide and start seeing it as something to share. You may not realize it now, but people are watching your faith. They see how you handle pain, how you respond to disappointment, how you rise after falling. Your life may be the only sermon some will ever hear. And when they see you walking in peace after heartbreak, smiling after sorrow, forgiving after betrayal, they'll see the evidence of God's healing power. You become a living example of redemption. You become the proof that grace is real, that restoration is possible, that God still works miracles. That's what makes your wounds so valuable. They testify to his faithfulness in a way words alone never could. Think of the moments when Jesus appeared to his disciples after the resurrection. He still bore the scars in his hands and side. Those scars were not signs of defeat. They were proof of victory. They showed that pain had been endured, death had been conquered, and grace had triumphed. The same is true for you. Your scars are not symbols of failure. They are reminders that you have overcome through the power of God. They are your proof that healing is real and hope is alive. Every time you choose to trust again, love again, dream again, you give your wounds a voice that glorifies him. And when you share your story, it multiplies healing. Someone else finds courage to believe again because you did. Someone else feels less alone because you opened your heart. Someone else finds the strength to surrender because you showed them what faith looks like in motion. That's how your pain becomes ministry, how your scars become a message, how your wounds become your witness. What once seemed like the end becomes a beginning, a doorway through which grace flows into the lives of others. And every time you tell your story, heaven smiles, because what once brought you to your knees now lifts someone else to their feet. No pain lasts forever. God will restore your joy and make you whole again. There are seasons in life that feel like they will never end, moments when the night seems too long and the silence too heavy. You wake up with the same ache that you carried to bed, wondering if you'll ever smile again, if you'll ever feel light in your heart again. But even in those moments, even in the shadows, God is at work. Pain is temporary, but his promises are eternal. What feels permanent is only passing through. The storm may rage for a while, but the sun will rise again, and when it does, it will shine brighter than before because of what you've been through. God has a way of turning pain into promise, sorrow into singing, and ashes into beauty. Every tear you've cried has been seen. Every sleepless night has been noticed. God has not forgotten you. Sometimes his silence is not abandonment, it's preparation. He's working behind the scenes, orchestrating healing in ways you can't yet perceive. It may feel like your world is falling apart, but often that's what it looks like when God is putting things together. He breaks what is false to reveal what is true, removes what hinders to restore what heals. The process may be painful, but the outcome is peace. You might not understand it now, but the same God who allowed your heart to break is the one who knows exactly how to mend it. He will not leave you in pieces. He will restore every fragment with love that is deeper than your pain. Joy has a way of returning when you least expect it. You'll be walking through an ordinary day, and suddenly a spark of laughter will rise within you. It won't make sense at first. How could something so broken begin to feel light again? But that's what divine healing looks like. It's not always a loud miracle. Sometimes it's a quiet awakening, a gentle reminder that life can still be beautiful. God restores joy one moment at a time. The same hands that formed the stars are the hands reaching to lift you up again. He doesn't just fix what's broken. He renews it, strengthens it, and makes it shine with greater purpose. The enemy wants you to believe that your pain will last forever, that joy is something you've lost for good. But that's a lie. Scripture says, weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning. That verse isn't a metaphor, it's a promise. Every night has an end, and every sorrow has a sunrise. God will not let your story end in despair. He will bring you through this valley, and when you emerge, you'll realize that the darkness was never meant to destroy you. It was meant to develop you. The pain you're feeling now is proof that something new is being born inside you. Healing is not just about recovering what you lost. It's about discovering what God wants to give you next. You might not recognize yourself after this season, but that's not a bad thing. The version of you that walks out of this pain will carry wisdom, strength, and compassion that you didn't have before. God uses pain to purify the heart, to teach endurance, and to deepen empathy. What hurt you won't define you, it will refine you. One day you'll look back and realize that what once broke you became the foundation of your faith. You'll see that your tears watered the soil of your growth. God will restore your joy, not as it was, but greater than it has ever been. Because restoration with him doesn't mean returning to the old, it means rising into the new. There's something powerful about divine restoration. When God restores, He doesn't give you back what you lost. He gives you something better. Job lost everything, yet when his season of pain ended, God blessed him with double. The same God who restored Job's joy is the same God watching over you. He knows how to turn every loss into gain, every heartbreak into healing, every ending into a new beginning. It may take time, but time doesn't limit Him. While you're waiting, He's working. While you're weeping, He's weaving purpose through your pain. The process might feel invisible, but the results will be undeniable. Wholeness doesn't mean you'll forget what happened. It means what happened will no longer control you. The memories may remain, but the pain will lose its power. You'll be able to look back without breaking down. You'll talk about what hurt you without feeling the sting. That's when you'll know healing has taken root. Because God's goal isn't just to help you survive. It's to help you thrive. He wants to restore not only your joy, but your peace, your hope, your trust, your ability to love again. The world may have taken much from you, but it can't take what God is about to give you. His restoration reaches deeper than the wound and lasts longer than the pain. Sometimes the hardest part of healing is believing that joy will return. When you've been in pain for so long, it's easy to forget what peace feels like. But God's promise stands true even when your emotions don't. He said He would comfort those who mourn and give them beauty for ashes. He said He would turn mourning into dancing. Those aren't poetic phrases. They are divine guarantees. There will be a day when the heaviness lifts, when laughter feels natural again, when you wake up with hope instead of hurt. And it won't be because life suddenly became perfect. It will be because His presence restored your heart. When God begins to restore you, everything about your life changes quietly but powerfully. You start to see blessings in places you once saw burdens. You begin to thank Him for the lessons learned in pain instead of resenting the moments that caused it. You realize that the same valley that nearly buried you became the place where you found His voice most clearly. Restoration changes your perspective before it changes your situation. You stop asking, "Why me?" and start saying, "Thank you, Lord, for staying with me." That's what wholeness looks like. Peace in your soul, even when life around you isn't perfect. You may not see it yet, but God is rebuilding you from the inside out. He's strengthening what was weak, healing what was wounded, and preparing you for what's next. The pain that once consumed you is slowly becoming the platform for your praise. You're being made new in the quiet, in the waiting, in the trusting. And one day soon, you'll wake up and realize the weight is gone. You'll breathe freely again. You'll laugh without forcing it. You'll look in the mirror and see someone who has been through fire but has come out refined. Because no pain lasts forever when it's placed in the hands of the Eternal One. Even in your current struggle, remember that God specializes in restoration. He is the healer of hearts, the mender of brokenness, the restorer of joy. The same God who painted rainbows after storms and rolled away stones after death can breathe life into your weary soul. He can turn your mourning into dancing, your despair into delight, your weakness into worship. There will come a time when the joy He gives will make you forget the depth of your sorrow, not because the past is erased, but because His presence fills every empty space that pain once occupied. What feels shattered today will shine tomorrow. What feels lost will be found in His timing. What feels unbearable now will one day be a testimony of how He made you whole again.